Go Canada, right? I mean, I'm from Palo Alto, and you think that the weather's good there, but I'll tell you something, the weather's a lot better here. Um, so I'm sorry to pull you guys inside from the beautiful view of the river into a tent. And originally I was going to talk about cities, but I think the previous speaker covered a lot of thinking there. So how many people here are entrepreneurs or about to be entrepreneurs? Thank God. All right, because I was a little worried, right? So that's basically everybody. Because I was going to talk about cities and you would be bored to death because you're like, I live in a city, I know everything about a city. So I'm going to talk about my own entrepreneurial journey. And it really is one where I woke up, right? And, I'm going to take you through the process that I went through to wake up, and hopefully that will provide you with some inspiration. But I speak to entrepreneurs all around the world, some of whom are further along, some of whom are not. And the truth of the matter is, most of the people I meet in entrepreneurship, in the field of entrepreneurship, entrepreneurs, etc., are not awake. And so the first challenge that I would give to you is think about how you're not awake and wake yourself up. And I'll go through, again, my own experiences there. And then the great irony is so that you can pursue your dreams, right? So you're going to wake up to pursue your dreams, right? So that sounds like an oxymoron, but you've been dreaming a long time, right? You've been dreaming about a lot of different things. So now it's time to wake up. And ultimately, I think if you wake up, pursue your dreams, you can be happy. Right, and this is a picture of me and my family. I have 3 kids. A lot of entrepreneurs don't have that many kids, and I don't blame them. But I think you can have it all, right? You can literally have it all. So I'm going to go rewind, and actually this is sort of the second. I'm younger than I look, so I had that photo in the beginning that makes me look older, or I'm old, whatever. I look younger than I am. So I'm going to go the second half of my entrepreneurial journey, because in 2000, I was pretty successful already. I had built a company and sold it for $750 million. I had taken another company public for $1 billion. We had 1,000 employees. And even though the crash sort of wiped all that away, I still, had a bit of a hangover, if you will, of success and some money and resources, etc. So there I am celebrating with my wife before we were married, a gentleman named Elon, who I'll be talking about in this talk a little bit, and another relatively famous investor. And then, as you all know, something happened. And you could argue in my case that might have been the incident that woke me up, and it was 9/11. And I actually took this photo. And unfortunately, I was a lot closer when the buildings fell than this photo. I took that photo, that's because in front of my house. And then I'm like, oh, what's going on? Let me go check it out. I'm like, oh, shit, that was a stupid idea. Let me run away. But it woke me up a little bit. And then I said, I really became very reflective. What do I want to do with my life? Because I think I'd been asleep. Right, and I guarantee you're all asleep, right? And I really took a hard look, and I said, what's important? What do I want to do with my life? And in fact, at the time, and this is like 2001-ish, the answers were very simplistic. And I would argue with you that when you first awaken, when you first really take a hard look at what you want to do with your life, the first answers you come up with in a truly aware state are going to be rather simplistic. And I happened to be driving, so the road ahead, and this is actually a literal story as well, I happened to be driving with a very good friend of mine, my best friend, Elon Musk, at night back from Long Island, and we were like, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. And it was dark, and so I was like, let's do space. And he's like, that's a stupid idea. And I also was like, that's a stupid idea. But we had this vision, this dream of space from when we were young. Like, how many people thought we would be like traveling the moon on a regular basis by now? Right? Well, That's one. So we're not, right? We're like, what the fuck happened? Excuse my language. Like, that's going to happen a lot, by the way, me cursing. So we're like, what happened that this great dream that we had as kids and you know, young adults, et cetera, never got realized? And so the argument in the car basically went something like, well, it's too hard for people like you and I to do. Yeah, well, really? Why is that? And so we just kept arguing, and then we said, all right, we're going to go figure it out. So we got in a plane. This was actually him getting certified for night flying, so he's wearing blinders. So I would say a lot of times when you go and you begin a journey to figure out, and you're waking up and you're starting to look for your dream, you're blind. You have no idea what's going on in the world, and your job is to go out and research. And we researched for a long time. So we went to Ariane Space, and we went to Ariane Space, and we're talking to them about, you know, how did your rocket work? Can we buy a rocket? And literally that day, their rocket blew up. And they're like, oh, besides the incident today where the rocket blew up, our rockets are great. Like, okay, sure they are. And then we went to Russia and dealt with the various Russians, which are super awesome. They make stuff like this. I don't even know what that is. I think it you know, tenderizes meat. I'd like the whole cow. And we drank with them as well. And we actually bought 2 ICBMs. And so, believe it or not, so Adeo, Elon, and Al-Qaeda are in the market for buying, I guess that now it's like the NSA, some analyst, and is suddenly awakened and at his terminal like, Adeo, no fly. Great, that will suck because I fly a lot. So back to the point. So we bought 2 ICBMs. Sorry, Uncle Sam. We actually never did anything with them because the genesis of SpaceX ended up being that Elon went back to Russia to close the deal of purchasing the ICBMs, and they tripled the price. And he got so angry, he's like, I can build a rocket better than the Russians, and launch SpaceX. But what we were doing at the time was we were setting up a company to send something to Mars to re-inspire humanity, to reawaken humanity about our dreams, to go to space, to travel our solar system, to travel the universe, and to really start doing the things that we, in our sleep state, forget, right? Now, while, so a lot of my own awakening was like, if I'm awake, you're all asleep, let's see if we can wake a lot of people up. And so at the same time, I joined the board of the X Prize Foundation, which did a $10 million prize to send people to space. And so we launched I had hair, by the way. It wasn't a lot of hair in that photo, clearly. I think it was shortly after that photo was taken that my new look emerged. Yeah, wow. And I wore like yellow tinted glasses, so people thought I had like jaundice all the time. They're like, "Are you jaundiced?" I'm like, "No." So we wanted to show people that with a dream, you could build a craft that took people to space, and that's Burt Rutan, and he's an aeronautical engineer living in the middle of the desert, who with a small team of people and a dream secured investment from Paul Allen and built a craft that will probably take the first real non-super wealthy tourist to space in our lifetime. Well, while I was doing all that, and I have a colleague of mine from these days here in the audience, I was also working on video games. And our mascot was a white gorilla. And our vision was we're trying to get people to evolve. So how many people here work in games? All right, that's too bad. So games is a great industry because I genuinely believe that some of the great innovations of our time in language and learning will come from the video gaming industry. So basically, when I woke up, I'm like, space and games, things that I had thought about for a long time. And you know, we were pretty big. We had like 20 million. The term gamification emerged from work that we were doing back then. So you would think that space and games are pretty awesome, right? Yes? Wow. Is this a Canadian thing, or is it just like it's sunny outside thing? So you would think that space and games are pretty awesome, right? Yeah. All right. Well, it turns out they're not. Does anyone in this picture look happy? That guy looks particularly unhappy. And in fact, I think happiness and space are inversely proportional with age. So the older you get, the more curmudgeonly you are. I launched 5 missions and 4 blew up on the pad. So, you know, the seasoned, leaders of the field are like grumpy old people who had their crap blow up on the pad 5 times. I spent 8 years of my life and it blew up. Never happen again. So it's just not a very pleasant industry to be in. And games as well, let me assure you, it's a lot more fun to play a game than it is to make a game, which is why there's probably only one dude in the gaming industry in this whole audience. You've realized this. So sometimes when you're waking up, the things that seem like obvious things to do are not the things that you should do, right? And so I'm going to leave you with some really big questions, because I think you have to wake up, you have to start thinking about what you're going to do with your life. And and you should dream big, right? Dream big. Wake up and dream as big as possible, right? Like 9/11 happened and like went into the space industry, and commercial space is now an industry. It was a dream at the time, right? So you can dream as big as you want, but the first thing that you can want to ask yourself is, can it be done, right? Because when Elon and I were in that car, we said it could not be done, right? But then we said, maybe it can be done, and let's go see if we can do it, right? So a lot of times, the things that you have in yourself, the lessons you've learned as a child, the things your teachers, parents, associates beat out of you, they make you close to the possibilities of the world, but sometimes they can be done. And you need to genuinely dream big and ask, can it be done? And really not just be like, no, it can't be done because I'm driving on the LAE late at night and I just think it can't be done. Get on a plane. Go out. Talk to people. Figure it out. Can it be done? But here's where I sort of screwed up, right? Do you want to do it, right? Because just because something can be done, like space or games, doesn't mean that you are the one to do it. And that is I would say that's one of the biggest problems I see with entrepreneurs. They latch on to ideas they think are really big that they don't love, or they think are like great, interesting opportunities, or they were a scientist at a university and they figured something out, but they don't. So, do you really want to do this is probably one of the most important questions you can ask yourself. And then last but not least, is it worth pursuing, right? Because you're going to make a lot of sacrifices on the way. And sometimes, just because it can be done and you love it, it might be too small an opportunity, or, it might take too great a toll on your life, so you won't be able to actually get to the end. So is it worth pursuing? And those are the 3 things that you should evaluate everything that you do in your life, assuming that you have a sufficiently big dream. And I would challenge you that unless you're awake, unless you're really looking around the world with open eyes, asking these questions in an honest way, you're probably not pursuing a big enough and interesting enough and a meaningful enough challenge for yourself. Because the truth of the matter is human beings are conditioned to love stupid things that you concoct in your mind, right? So you're going to love your dumb idea. Even if it's the dumbest possible idea, you're still somehow going to love it, mainly because you think it's yours. I would argue it probably isn't yours. Most ideas come from environmental factors, but because it popped in your head, you're like, it's my idea, and I love it. But in fact, your job is not to fall deeper in love. In fact, the interesting thing, going back to the space thing, was, your job is to kill it. And the interesting thing, going back to the space thing, we went into space trying to kill it. The premise was, this is not possible to do. Let's go see if it can be done, right? But the assumption was it was impossible, right? And I would even argue that if your dream feels possible, you're probably not dreaming big enough, right? If you tell someone, now, I wouldn't recommend going out to an investor, and I wear a hat as an investor, and telling them your absolute biggest dream right away, right? Start with sort of the first step, the first notch in the pole. But if your big dream doesn't seem impossible, it's probably not big enough. And I'll just tangent for a moment. When I launched the Founder Institute, at the time, 5 years ago, about 25,000 technology companies were started around the world. And we said, if we want to dent survival rates and have a meaningful impact in the world of startups, we need to create 1,000 technology companies per year. People are like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? That's ridiculous. There's no way in hell that you are going to create 1,000 companies a year. Well, 5 years later, actually next year, we'll create 1,000 companies a quarter. So the truth of the matter is that if it doesn't seem almost crazy, it's probably not big enough. And then you need to do and go through and really think about what you're trying to accomplish, really research like I did, getting on a plane, flying around the world, meeting with people, because you wouldn't go on vacation without doing research. You'd show up at the car rental place and they'd be like, here's your RV. It's like a shack on wheels. You're like, oh, thank you. And then be like, let's take this weird detour turn here on like some death road. I actually gave this presentation. This is a real road, clearly, and someone had driven it. And I'm like, you're fucking an idiot. And then you would wind up in this hellhole where you wouldn't do it, right? So little known fact is like the genesis of, let's say, a company like SpaceX, which everyone's like, oh my God, it's the greatest company in the world, blah, blah, blah. You know, we did research and work for years. 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, more like 3 years. And when I say research and work, I'm talking like, full time, not nights and weekends. So really thinking about what can be done is important. Now, hitting the wrong one. So again, wake up, look around you, make then a big dream. Take your lessons from being asleep, what you see in the world around you, and turn that into something big. And when you tell it to people, they shouldn't believe it. That's impossible. You're going to prove them wrong, right? And you're going to die trying, because this is the thing that for you is your calling, why you're here on the planet, the thing that makes you who you are. So there's no other option than to see it happen in the world. And if you do it right, and it took me quite a few tries. I mean, the Founder Institute's my 8th company, right? And it's been a process to get to where I am. And I hope some of the knowledge I share with you today will help you shorten that process. But if you get there, right, and you have an impact on the world, and you do the things that people think are impossible, you might be able to change the world in a big and meaningful way. And if that all goes well, you can also be pretty happy. So I leave you with the following 3 things. Wake up, dream big, die trying. Thank you.